Hello everyone, this is creepingnet, and we are talking about Adventure Game Studio today. Today we're on creepingnet 486. This is a computer completely built by me. It's got pieces of all the previous creepingnet machines in it, everything, the Gem, Flight, IBM, whatever you name it. It's 486DX4100, as you can see the specs on the screen here. Pretty beefy old computer. We're going to go max RAM free today. As you can see, I have a Creative Labs Sound Blaster AW64, so we'll have some good audio. Hopefully we have some games in here that I can show off. And yes, I have Wi-Fi on here. It's actually connected to Wi-Fi via a Wi-Fi Ethernet bridge. Linksys WNCE 2001, actually. It's not from 2001. Anyway, today we're going to talk about Adventure Game Studio 231, which is a program that you can use to create DOS games. Adventure Game Studio, of course, exists in a modern format on Chris Jones's website. I believe he's still the one taking care of it. The current versions mainly focus on Linux and modern Windows. This is an old version that basically creates executables for Windows 95, 98, and Windows 3.1. If you're wondering why my computer is so snappy, well, believe it or not, this 486 has a 128 gig SATA hard drive in it. Yes, I'm not kidding you. 128 gigabytes, just massive. Anyway, while we're in here, we're going to go to Room Edit, and hopefully this doesn't crash. So I'm going to go in here and wait. We're going to pick a game of mine, probably, just to go over stuff. I think we'll pick Mr. Flower. That's like the most original thing I have. So we're going to go over. This is called Room Edit, and it's basically where you set up the entire game from in Adventure Game Studio 231. You have these tabs at the bottom: Game, Room, Visual, and Advanced. Game is where you can set all the main settings like debug mode, play sound on 0 score, dialogue options, all that fun stuff. You can set the title, total score, transitions, Vox files. You can test the game by clicking executable here. You have a graphical user interface section where you can kind of see where all my graphic user interfaces are. Graphic user interfaces in Adventure Game Studio are basically your anything that you have that you pop up that the player interacts with, whether that's this top bar here for save, load, settings, this pop-up that's like the about window. As you can see, I have a LucasArts style GUI kind of styled up like a 1980s television set. I've got my control panel here, and I have like the save quit dialogue. Right here we have my palette, which just has a really rough set of colors here. Explaining how palettes work in this old version of Adventure Game Studio. You can make your game high color, which then the palette becomes irrelevant, but in order for it to work, you need to have a VISA compliant VISA local bus graphics card, which this computer has, or something better in order to actually run that. I've had a lot of trouble getting this to work in DOS, so I just don't use it. I use the old school 256 color palette, like, you know, Monkey Island or your SCI, Sierra Creative Interpreter games and all that, you know, Space Quest 5 and all that stuff. So that's what I use it for. Moving down, here's your inventory. Of course, I have no objects in this game yet. This game was more of a survival horror game. We've got a key, we've got a pink poster. We've got global messages here, like I can't pick it up, I can't move it. These are like your messages when the player like clicks on something on screen that they can't interact with or shouldn't interact with. You know, a lot of your standard stuff. I can't pick that up, I can't move it, why would I talk to that? Not particularly interesting, that would be a bad idea, yada yada. Basically, these messages, the global messages, work in every room in the game, and they allow you to basically call them from any room anywhere in the game, so the player, aka Ego, can actually go ahead and go, yeah, you can't do that, or you can do this, or maybe it's something that he uses that works in every room. Like in this game, there's a smartphone that the player has that you can look at to do that. This is the part where all my videos have been crashing, is edit scripts. Hopefully it doesn't happen here in FreeDOS, because it's been happening in all the other DOS things. So let's click Edit Script. Here we go. So here's your main script for Adventure Game Studio, and for those of you that use the modern version, it should be pretty familiar to you. So open up whatever your default editor is. This is FreeDOS Edit because we're in FreeDOS 1.3. I tend to prefer FreeDOS personally because I'm kind of getting tired of having Microsoft in my house. Even with some of the announcements of some of the Windows 11 stuff. So as you can see, anything that's commented to / main global script profile. It's done in a C type context, so it's like function game start, called when the game starts. You have interface off, or interface on, which turns your interfaces on and off. This one shuts off all the interfaces. Sets the game items per line in your inventory and the game number of inventory displayed, which is a total of 8. So you have like 2 rows. And then you have this function, global script function over here, which is like anything you want to have happen every game cycle. You know, set cursor mode. Look, you know, it sets your cursor modes when you click on the icons that change the cursor, which in this case would be like your look, pick up, talk to, whatever you have. Find out what the cursor is, get location name, set label text. Over here is all your hotkeys, which uses the ASCII key codes. So like 17 would be like 363, you know, and it just basically, this is your default save game debug dialogues. It's also useful if you're debugging the game too, because then I can teleport to different rooms. Function on old mouse, clicking it. When a mouse button is clicked, mouse button is either left or right. Game pause, do nothing, i.e. don't allow mouse clicks. You know, you see, it's just basically the framework for the game. All right, and really you can see all of the scripts for the game in here. I mean, so far, except for the room scripts, it's pretty much just everything that makes the game work. The interface, scripts, everything else. Everything in this game is a script. So here we are back here. Now let's look under visuals next. So here's your sprite manager. It shows all your sprites in 16 colors, even though they're 256, and the palettes might be a little goofy. You can do use background palette for the sprites, which might not be a bad idea. I've actually thought with Mr. Flower I should probably do that just because it all takes place entirely at night. Views, here's your character views. These are animations, so you have the up, down, left, right, and then you have a couple more for diagonal directions. Characters, of course, we have Evan. This is your main character, Ego. That's the script name. As you can see his walking animation, which is a little doofy because it was my first time animating a character. We have Eldon, who is, you know, we have all these different walkers in here. Ernie, I'd like Homer, myself. As you can see, they all kind of have the same ones in here. I was thinking about having some gangstas in there. There's Mr. Flower. There's like a poop guy, pink cone, whatever. We'll talk about lore later. Here's the cursors, of course. I have an animated cursor. It's kind of my own thing based on the LucasArts style cursor. But I wanted it a little more animated and a little more elaborate and more colorful. And then here's your fonts. You have pretty standard fonts in the game. Pretty much the same stuff you'd see in like Monkey Island or whatever. Over here is your advanced. This is the dialogue, dump text, text parser. You know, for when you want to make something more like an older SCI 1.0 game. You know, your Leisure Suit Larry 2 type games. You can dump all the text. You can do all the dialogue in here. So you've got all the new dialogues in there. You can edit the script for it, of course. Like this is the entire script for Eldon's entry point where he yells at his son to come down. Now, last one, this is where you're going to spend most of your time, is the room. So let's load a room in the game. I'm just going to pick any old random one, maybe room 6. So room 6 here, we have Eldon's office, or Evan's, or not, Ernie's office. I keep getting the characters confused because it's been a while since I've even touched this. Not really a good room to show you. I'd probably say maybe we'll use room 9. So here's the main room in the TV repair shop. It's kind of dark. That's deliberate. To give you an idea, I drew all this in Graphics 2 only using blue tints because I want it to look really, really dark and kind of scary. It's a lot fuzzier on your screen than it is for me. I'm looking at this on a 17-inch CRT. You're looking at this through YouTube through like multiple adapters to get a VGA signal into OBS Studio. So when we look here, I mean, I have like parodies for brands. There's the Zeus, which is my parody of Zenith. You got TV here, an old arcade game, creepy 1960s looking TV, some giant radio that looks almost like a Pope's hat incarnated as a radio, turntables, stereo equipment, old computers, video game systems, that kind of stuff. Actually, you see some stuff that's kind of familiar in here. Like that was actually inspired by a giant tower I had. And there's my old Mitsubishi CS 1984R TV you used to see in my old games. Note what's that on top of it? An Atari 2600. So when we're looking around in the room, down here are your coordinates for where you are on screen. This is used to help you program interactions or what's supposed to be on screen at that moment. So like say if I'm in the shop and I want something to appear on this TV, every sprite or object starts in the upper left hand corner, so I'd put a screen animation at like 424.94, or if I wanted to kind of light up the frame around the screen, make it look a little more realistic, 419 by 90. Of course, if you look at it, there's other tabs here. There's walkable areas, which now as you can see I've got this blue thing all over the room, including this one line that loops around the room. When I designed this room, I designed it a little differently. So these hot spots, you can do multiple things with it. You can do zoom level, which allows you to zoom the character. So say when your character's walking out of the room, which here I didn't use it because the angle was low enough that the character would look fine even if he stayed the same size. But the light level is adjusted. So over here, you know, the blue color light level's 15. Then this is brighter because you got this big window over here, and I have like a spot where it's like -5 right here. And that's all to make the give you some immersion, and you can also remove. And you have to hand draw all this like a paint program all the way around here. As you can see, I have this one blue line here that goes around. The idea was in this game that these TVs would do haunted things at night, like start playing, like the record player would start playing some creepy music, or the TV would start showing like a demented version of Sesame Street or something, and then you have to go turn it off before the monster spawns from the television screen. So like say maybe you had a monster that spawned. I was still on the fence about development on whether to have it where the monster went around or not. So I was like, So one other idea I had was maybe where the player character ego could sort of do the old Monkey Island 2 Saints Go Marching In trick, as I call it. If you remember Monkey Island 2, spoiler alert, there was a part where Guybrush Threepwood has to like rattle some trash cans, and he has to run around Elaine's mansion to get away from the chef, who's really irritated by the noise. So that was kind of my idea. And here, a monster would spawn here. Maybe you're standing there, you go all the way around, loop around, come back out. And then when you came back in the room, all the TVs are off and everything would be gone. And it would kind of be this thing where the monsters don't leave the room or don't follow you unless you're actually in the room. And if you leave the room long enough, they disappear. And there'd be other little puzzles and stuff. Then you have your walk behinds. These are set by what are called baselines here, these multicolored little bars. And what those do is set the baseline for when the player's standing behind it. Say I'm standing behind this red line. Anything in this room that's painted red, which in this case would be that one little bit of leg there on that TV. When the player walks behind this, you won't see the player behind where it's been blacked out with green paint. And it basically gives you this illusion of this 3D room where the character can walk behind objects. It's actually the same concept that Sierra used in their adventure game interpreter AGI, which was used for like King's Quest, Leisure Suit Larry, all that kind of stuff. Then you got hotspots, and you have all these things that you could look at. Like the first one is these little boxes over here. You could do interactions. It would like display a message. If you could interact with it and it wouldn't do anything. I have TVs in there. There's like a little TV over there. No interaction set for it. You know, 2, 3, big console, big old TV, creepy 60s TV, computer monitor, Zoltari video game system. So I wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit. So right over here in this room, you have this Mitsubishi TV, just like the one I've had in my old YouTube videos I don't have anymore. And I put an Atari 2600 on top of it. And what it was in the game, you could find as an Easter egg these little cartridges. You could plug them in. You could kind of get a break from the game by playing little mock Atari 2600 video games. Most of them based off of like creepy nightmare stuff. I was inspired to. The idea was inspired by Scott Cawthon because the whole reason I got into Five Nights at Freddy's when I did was because someone's kid we were babysitting pointed out, "Oh yeah, I got this game, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. You're playing. Looks like the death mini games." From I was playing Adventure for the Atari, and it was like, okay, I'll check this out. And, and lo and behold, I thought, hey, that's kind of cool having an Atari game in the middle of a video game and not just be at some arbitrary nostalgia thing, you know. So you got hotspots, and then you have objects in the room. I don't have any objects in this room. This game wasn't going to be really heavy on objects. It was going to be heavy on more survival, kind of like FNAF. So you have that whole thing, and then at the setup screen, you could edit the scripts. So, like, all I have in the scripts file, I have almost nothing. And the reason why was because one of the biggest struggles I had in developing this and the FNAF 486 game I have on here is trying to figure out how to employ those global timers for those events. Everything in these computer games is controlled by a timer. You have a timer set, and then you use certain other elements of math to drive the character logic. So say you want this TV to maybe have like a 15% chance of spawning an enemy when you come in the room, and you maybe have 30 seconds to turn it off before it spawns the enemy, That was kind of the whole idea with this. So we're going to exit out. And I'm waiting for my mouse cursor. It's kind of slow because it's on a 486 DX4100. You target game DOS. You also had an option to do Windows 95, but we're going to go back to DOS. Transition. So let's test the game. We'll just take a look at it. We're just not going to save anything. We're just going to run it. And of course it crashes. I mean, that's kind of the problem with this in Allegro. I'm also going to kind of show you some of the tools I used to develop these things because people probably wonder how you make graphics for this. And that's probably one of the first things most people notice when I start showing off that I've been developing anything is the graphics. Because I spent a real long time working with various programs like Linkway. I used to draw a lot in Harvard Graphics 3.0, which really doesn't produce much of anything of any major importance, really, or of use. But we're going to go here, C/. So GraphX 2, this is the old DOS version 3.05 from 1999. As you can see, it's an init 13H graphics editor. Let's see if we can put it in 320 by 240. So you can see the whole screen. So here we go. This is what GraphX 2 looks like to me most of the time when I run it. You have your coordinates down here in the status bar when you're up here drawing around. So like right now I'm at 90 by 77. It usually saves your files in a PKM format, but if you save them, you can use PKM, LBM, GIF, bitmap, PCX, image, Pi1, PC2, PAL. I mean, you got all these different image formats. I don't know if I have my picture. Oh yeah, let's go look at some of the pictures. We'll use corporate warfare because it has brighter images for things. So usually when I first develop these games, um, well, actually, let's look at. I think I cleared most of these out. We'll look at some artwork though. But yeah, I don't know why. Oh, I know why I'm not seeing anything. So all my pictures were done in bitmap format. So we'll go to corporate warfare. So like as you look here, here's all the rooms. And I'll probably do more of a deeper talk on this in another video doing artwork for rooms. And not just artwork for rooms, but just artwork in general. Maybe we'll do like a joy of PC painting or something. Where I play MIDI files and I mess around in graphics too. So anyway, this was the first scene for corporate warfare that I did, which is an automobile garage. The plot of the game was basically play a character who's disgruntled with the company that he worked for that ruined his life, and so now he finds his way of sneaking into the company and breaking all the rules and ends up getting to the top and becoming a CEO. And each floor of the company is kind of like rungs on the corporate ladder. And this is a good picture to start with because it kind of shows you my drawing process. So usually when I start, I think about, is this room indoor or outdoor? If it's an outdoor room, I'll usually start by drawing the sky and the horizon, but we'll talk about that when we get to one like that. This is an indoor room, so I drew like the walls. I'll usually start with the floor and then texture the floor, do some stuff to get the floor right, and then I'll start adding walls and stuff. So I work in a layered process from the back up to the front doing graphics. So I'll have all this done with a tool, and then I'll go drawing all the details up front, like this security booth, all these different cars. You can see we got like a Ford Ranger, a Fiat 500, a BMW, another BMW, I think, a Bugatti. We've got all these different cars in here because this is the parking garage. So when your character would go in there, and then to kind of explain the artwork, I had multiple layers of the garage. So we go to the next level, of course, more cars. I have a minivan started. Here you can kind of see some work in progress. So I got like a little minivan right there where I haven't finished the windows on. Got, some of these are pretty familiar, like a Ford Explorer, a Toyota Corolla, Yugo, Oldsmobile. Actually, fun Easter egg in this. So basically, these were all cars of like friends and family, and just cars that fascinated me when I was drawing this. Literally. So we used to have a Corolla like that, and that was my mom's old Oldsmobile. We called the Highway Slug. There's the Rabbit. I put in a Prius like one of my coworkers had. There's my sister's old Tempo from hell. Little Easter eggs in my games. That's what I wanted to do when I was drawing this stuff. And then we move over here. There's a familiar sight for you if you know me. And yeah, just to show you even more, you notice some of these scenes are incomplete. So right here was a puzzle I had where we had this old rusty dilapidated car run by the shipping receiving people here. One of them drove this to work. And it had like random stuff to solve puzzles in the trunk. And what you do is there was an animation where I click open trunk, and I have a sprite here that would pop up like a trunk, and you could get in the trunk. But you had to get in the trunk by climbing under the car. And I think I had the same thing with this Ford Ranger service truck here too. You'd climb underneath, and there was like rusty panel, and you'd remove the screws using a coin or something. So we're kind of looking at it. Let's go look at an outdoor scene. So here's the roof of the corporate building you start in. So as you can see, I started with a horizon, and I drew the horizon first, then I kind of drew the layout of the city, of the roof of the building here, so then you had a place to walk. This is where the game's climax would take place. Here you got that air conditioner in here at the funny fake parody brand name of Reamed. Elevator on the roof with its motor. You got like a stack of some random bricks and construction. I even put a little compact portable computer there that looks like it's been smacked around. You got the whole city in the background sitting over here, on both sides, and there's ocean in the background because the city was kind of inspired by Seattle. So as I draw it, I would just draw in all these details and, then have it that way. So we're going to go ahead and go look at some other stuff, other assets that you draw for Adventure Game Studio, and we're going to kind of talk about those. Let's talk about sprites. Or let's talk about characters. We don't have those. Words. So I think another good one would be FNAF 486. So FNAF 486 was like a FNAF version of FNAF that I created on here. It was like a version of Five Nights at Freddy's meant to run in DOS. And so there's a few of the graphics for that. I think Mr. Flower has the most assets. So here we're going to take a look at this. We have, of course, as I mentioned, the character has his own smartphone that you could use on screen. So I created my own little smartphone here that you could use. There's like 3 different things on it. There's an Urbex gallery website because people were Urbexing the TV shop in the game. You can see here I started with some of the TV animations. There's like the FNAF video game for this one. Some of the video game stuff for, the Atari one. This is, I think, supposed to be some kind of creepy Muppet thing or monster thing. Here we have the cursors for the game. So as you can see, I have like all the different multicolored LEDs, yes, no, close. I have my metal panels and all that other stuff. Newer Mr. Flowers Madware software thing. And now you can kind of see where my sprites came from. So this is like the sprites for the dad. I use 8 frames of animation for each character and loop them. This is like him talking. He's supposed to be like pointing at the sun and stuff. And actually, how I did it, you could get like these diagrams online for use with Adobe Photoshop, but I use GraphX 2 because it's free. So what I did was I started with this. I started with Guybrush Threepwood's sprite sheet from The Secret of Monkey Island to create the baseline for all my characters. There you go. There's Guybrush Threepwood. And all his different mouth and talking animations. And of course, Scum works very differently from Adventure Game Studio. So if I was to do all this, all these heads would have to be attached to Guybrush's body for the animations. But that's how I made templates for the characters. Is I just used Guybrush Threepwood's sprites as a guide, and then built off of them. And I would maybe cut them in half at one point to make the character taller or shorter or whatever needs to happen. It was editing and cutting. Let's see here. You had like Test Evan, which was like our main protagonist in the game. Somewhere in here, I think I have the main enemy. There's like an Urbex couple in the game that was supposed to be here. This is how I'd start out a lot, is I'd start with just one sprite and work from there. So that's like a Urbex chick that's supposed to go with the Urbex. So I'd just draw these sprites in here. And then for words. So another thing I wanted to mention is this is a beta version of GraphX 2. As you can see, it's all blue here and all the text looks kind of funny. So this text.bitmap is what I use to draw the text into the game. What I'd have to do is I have to use like a flood fill. Say maybe I wanted this to be red. I'd have to use a flood fill on it to paint the letters. And then I transfer them to another picture by using the copy command right here. So now since this is blue, we'll copy this. And then we'll load up another picture. Say, I wanted to go to the bedroom. Yes, discard, and maybe I wanted to put that there. So now I have the default palette. We're going to just load other stuff. So that's how I make the graphics. We're going to kind of talk a little bit more about audio next, just a little bit. Okay, so now we're in Windows for Workgroups 3.11, which at the time I was mainly just sticking to this setup. So for music, the main piece of software that I started using was a piece of software I found way back when I first started out called Presto Arranger. This used to come with a lot of Packard Bell Reveal sound card products. I just sort of separated it off. You can play keyboard. You can play keyboard with your, or MIDI keyboard with your keyboard. So how you do is you pick an instrument. So like say maybe you want a synth lead. I would take like a square lead. And then pick channel 1. You know, and we would do that. Pan it, that kind of stuff. So normally you'd be able to kind of hear it play in here. Maybe I'd pull up a different one. So let's pull up, you know, channel 4 or something like that. 3. I don't know if we're getting any audio out of this. But basically what I would do is I would generate MIDI files. Like, say this one, you know, that we can play that has all the stuff in it. So, you know, you'd play it. MIDI device is already in use. So that's where our problem is. So basically I would use this for, you know, composition, this program, which I still have some bugs I'm working out of this. This is a rebuilt reinstall, so we're going to kind of exit out and we're going to take a look at the other music software I use. So the other program that I more recently used, I bought the Sound Blaster MIDI kit at a thrift shop like a bazillion years ago called the Sound Blaster MIDI kit, and it came with the Voyetra Sequencer Pro. So if I open this up and run it, here we are, we're loading the MIDI audio drivers. It usually takes it a few moments. There we go, we're in Sequencer Plus Pro. This is an actual official copy. I have this. We're going to do port 2. So this is a little more difficult to deal with. And then like 48, 45. And then you have like a shift F2. You can, I think it was like F2 or something like that, where you could, there we go. You can do octaves, you know, down from there. Probably can't hear anything, but we can definitely load some files in here. Like we would be like, you know, I still need to remember the shortcuts for this. It'd be like F1 or F2. It's configuration, you know, you have options. Old school DOS program. I've kind of forgotten how to run it currently because I haven't used it in a few years, but that kind of goes to show you where the music comes from. Now let's go ahead and run through a few of the games, just kind of show it kind of can be done. So here we are in the fan game. We're just going to do 2 of the 3 because there's not a whole lot to Corporate Warfare. So this was FNAF 486. This was my attempt to make a 486 functional FNAF game. I don't know how much audio you're actually hearing in this. So maybe we'll switch to the other hard drives so then you can actually hear the music and stuff. So let's see if this one has audio that actually works. Alrighty. So it basically was to play like a Five Nights at Freddy's type game. It's here, so you'd be able to. We don't have. Okay, so hopefully this isn't going to be too noisy, but this is FNAF 486, which was sort of my. It's a bit loud though. Let's readjust that. So I had to go in and make some changes in mixer set to get it working the way it should. Still a little loud, but it has audio. Let's just go over here. I'm having some problems with firmware in this. So I don't know what the hell's going on with the card right now. It's acting up though. So we'll see what this does. So anyway, I would have like click sounds for the walls and all that. You can see it's just like the first game. You got that kind of noisy stuff there. MIDI's working alright, but I think the actual audio is kind of messed up because I'm having sort of a sound conflict. But yeah, it's basically like Five Nights at Freddy's here. You'd have all those different sounds that you could make. You know, you change between different items here and there. Change between the different screens using this control panel. None of this is animated, but yeah. Anyway, I'm going to see if we can fix the sound on this. Anyway, I'm going to try to see if I can fix the sound card. I think that's enough. So this is creepingnet signing out.